You ever wonder how a single wrestling promotion blew up to become this global entertainment empire? You might think you know the story, but honestly, the real origin of WWE is buried under decades of myths and wrestling lore. So let's dig in and uncover the real story. A lot of people will point to this one day, December 18th, 1952, as the birthday of WWE. You know, the moment Vince McMahon Sr. signed a deal for a local arena in Washington, D.C. But the real story? Oh, it's so much more complicated than just one business deal.
To really get the answer to that, we have to rewind the clock. We've got to go back to a time when the wrestling world played by a completely different set of rules.
To understand how the McMahon Empire was even possible, you first have to understand the world it was born into. And that world was ruled by what they called a gentleman's agreement. So before WWE, there was the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance. The best way to think about it is like a powerful cartel. You had all these promoters from all across the country, and they basically agreed not to compete with each other. They just carved up the map to protect their own little kingdoms. And it works kind of like a franchise, you know? Each promoter owned their local store, but they all sold the same big-ticket item, the NWA World Champion. This champion was this huge traveling attraction, like a seal of quality that could draw a crowd no matter what city he was in. So that was the system, right? A bunch of independent territories all playing nice. Now let's see how one really ambitious family found a crack in that foundation, right in the nation's capital. And this is where Vince McMahon Sr. enters the story. In 1952, he makes this incredibly smart play. He buys the promotional rights for Washington, D.C., names his company the Capital Wrestling Corporation, and he sees something most of his peers just totally missed: the unbelievable power of television. For just $60,000, which is still a lot of money, over $700,000 today, McMahon locked down this crucial asset. And almost right away, he started using this newfangled technology, TV, to build his base. It was such a savvy investment, and it would pay off in ways nobody could have possibly imagined. So this new power base he was building in the Northeast, well, it was eventually going to lead to a massive split from the NWA. A schism, really. The breaking point finally came in 1963. The NWA decided their champion, a guy named Buddy Rogers, who just happened to be promoted by McMahon, was going to lose his title in a quick one-fall match. Now, traditionally, championship matches were collations of epic best-of-3-fall showdowns. McMahon's camp cried foul. They saw it as a total slap in the face to their champion and their whole territory. And why is this so important? Because this was basically the company's declaration of independence. This was the moment the McMahons decided, you know what, we're going to build our own empire, instead of just being a part of someone else's. So they took their champion, Buddy Rogers, and just declared him their own first ever WWF World Champion. But here's where the popular history just gets flipped completely on its head. What if that whole Declaration of Independence, what if it was actually a defensive move? The story everyone knows is that Vince McMahon Jr. was the bad guy, the aggressor who broke the truce and just tore up the old territory maps. But if you look at the actual historical record, you see something totally different. That so-called gentleman's agreement, it was already falling apart at the seams. And here is the bombshell. Get this. History shows that a rival NWA promoter, a guy named Jim Crockett, had already started running shows in McMahon's territory a year before the split. So the creation of the WWF? That wasn't an act of aggression. It was a reaction. It was a defensive wall they built to protect their business, because someone else had already fired the first shot. So what's really fascinating is how this new, independent company then built the foundation for what would become a global takeover. Hey, remember that TV show from 1956? That wasn't just some one-off experiment. No, that was the beginning of a long-term strategy. While all these other promotions were just focused on selling tickets at the arena gate, the McMahons were building a direct pipeline straight into people's living rooms. And their television footprint just kept getting bigger and bigger. You see, most NWA promoters saw TV as just an ad for their local shows. The McMahons, they treated television as the main event itself. They weren't just building a wrestling promotion. They were building a media company from the ground up. Then the 80s roll around. Vince McMahon Jr. takes over and he sees the absolute game-changing potential of cable TV. All of a sudden, he could broadcast his show from the Northeast into every single home in America, completely leapfrogging those old territory lines. The gentleman's agreement was officially dead, made totally irrelevant by the airwaves. And this national expansion all led to their ultimate weapon, Monday Night Raw. This wasn't just another show to advertise events. No way. This was appointment television. It was a weekly, serialized drama that got a national audience hooked and became the flagship of their invading army.
And this chart just lays out the strategy perfectly. Look at that explosive growth in TV programming. It shows the whole shift. While the NWA system was counting on live crowds in different cities, the WWF was building a media machine that could reach everyone, everywhere, all at the same time.
So the story of WWE's origin isn't just about one family's ambition. It's really a lesson in how alliances crumble and how new technology can totally crown a new king. The first shot wasn't fired in the 80s. It was fired decades earlier. And the winner was the one who understood how to build an empire not on land, but on the screen.